Thank you, Rhonda, for a wonderful way to start our time together this morning. Thank you for being present with us. Thank you for your music and your choices of songs, too. Thank you for all of that. I am so thankful that you are all here this morning. We have, surprising with all of the rain, we do have people here in the meeting house. I will introduce them quickly. We have Gage Stemmer, who is with us. Ellen Craig is back. You were here last week too, Ellen. Doug Baker is back because he was not with us last week except for on Zoom, so it's good to have you in the building, Doug. We've got Suzanne Weber, who is with us this morning. We have Tom Harold. We have Jim Wells. It's good to see you. We have Robin Val Pearson, Brian Lilly. We have Dennis Engel. We have Susan Simons and Dave Longnecker, Norman Karen Peters, and Alan Linda Groth, and Ron and I. So I am thankful to see each one of you here today. On Zoom this morning, we have Dwight Ferguson and Delmer Ferguson in Overland Park, Kansas. Welcome. It's good to see you guys this morning. We have Teresa Wallace and Kenny Girton from here in Winchester. Welcome. It's good to see you. We have Keith Kendall from Friends Fellowship down in Richmond. It's good to have you, Keith, with us. We have Cleo and Diana McFarland, who are here with us from their home here in Winchester, and I assume that maybe you have a brother who's watching too, right? And so, yeah, so we're glad to have all of them. I told Cleo I'm glad he can see us after his cataract surgery. That's good news. We have Eileen Critch from her home here in Winchester. Welcome, Eileen. We have Rhonda, and Sam is harvesting now, wheat. And just so the farmers know, Sam reported 100 bushels to the acre out in Kansas, which is incredible, which is just incredible. So Sam is a happy guy. So he's harvesting, but Rhonda, thank you for being present with us. We have Lois Hogue from Sarasota, Florida. It is good to have you here with us, Lois. It's good to see you, as always. And Becky Edmonds, after you being in the hospital, you look great. So thank you. Thank you both to you and Nate for being here this morning. We have Nancy Wolf, who is here with us from Greenfield. Nancy, we're happy to have you here. And Mary Williams from Fishers? Fishers, yay, I got it right. It is good to see you this morning, Mary. Janet Ross from her home here in Winchester. Welcome, Janet. Terry and Sharon Reinhardt from their home here in Winchester. Welcome. And Charlie and Valerie Boyd. Charlie, you're looking good after your big week. It is nice to see you. It is good to have you both here. And we have Tony and Marcia Critch from here in Winchester. Tony, I said that I think maybe we can see your smile from this rain, even from here. So that's good. I'm sure that you like it. And we have Gretchen and Stan Hendrickson from Winchester. It's good to see you guys this morning. This morning was the day that every fourth Sunday in June, the three Quaker churches down in Richmond always have an outdoor worship service. And I thank them because that probably is what sent rain our way. So they found a building to meet in, so we're glad for that. But we are thankful for each of you being here this morning. Ron, we're going to sing a hymn, I think, to begin.
Getting my orders from headquarters. I, too, am very glad to see all of you here today. Let's stand if you're able. We always sing better when we stand. And sing number 483 in the hymnal, Lead On, O King Eternal, number 483.
And for those on Zoom, we'll mute.
Oh, yeah, we need to explain. We are carrying on our experimentation. We'll soon be famous for doing this. Rhonda's helping us. She is going to play even though she can't hear us singing. So she actually is playing without music in front of her, I think, and watching my lips on this screen to see that we stay together. It's pretty amazing. So Rhonda's going to play for us so that we have accompaniment. So Rhonda, 483, Lead On, O King Eternal, and if you would stand, that would help. Thank you, Rhonda.
Unmute. Oh, you got it, okay.
Thank you, Rhonda. You did really well. You're up. What you doing?
Thank you. Okay. We, this morning, I appreciated he's getting to the end of the Sermon on the Mount. I have appreciated greatly what he has written over the past months. I am thankful for this topic today. It is a hard topic, and last week I began the church service by reading to you a letter that I had gotten a copy of from Idaho, where a church, when I was in Idaho, I spent all of my time with my mother, except for 2.5 hours when I went to visit some dear friends of ours who we have been friends for 48 years. And they, in the past year, have experienced a real tragedy in their church. The husband of their pastor embezzled about $150,000 from the church. They were saving up money for a roofing job and for other things that needed done around the church. And so I read the letter about someone who just said, you know, we have felt so betrayed about this. And most of the 2.5 hours that I spent with my friends, Gib and Donna Sinclair, we were talking about this exact thing. How is it that we know that when we trust someone, you know, they thought they trusted this man, and when Gib had eye problems, he turned the finances over to him, and within a year's time, they lost all of that money. So how do we know whom to trust? The query that Ron had in there that I am looking at right now is the number 3. How can we know when or where we should shake the dust off our feet with someone and move on in ministry? In this case, that was the question that Gib and Donna kept asking. You know, we know that we need to forgive this man. We know that we need to move on. For the sake of the church, we need to move on. But it's really hard. In the midst of this whole process, the yearly meeting has been in what they have called a restorative process with this man. They feel like he should not be sent away, but that he should be restored to the church. Well, when so much damage has been done, that is a really hard sell. And so I've been thinking a lot about that as we look about this and shaking the dust off of our feet. When is the time that we just say, you know, I cannot do any more and I need to walk away from this situation? And Gib and Donna are in the process of thinking about that. And so I would ask for your prayers in the midst of it, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to know what to do. In the midst of all of this, the thing I woke up this morning thinking about is a legal term called due diligence. And we call it a legal term because most companies, we hire someone, we do due diligence. We find out everything that we can about these people, and or about the finances of a company or whatever it is. We as stewards of what we are entrusted with on a board or in a church or whatever, we do due diligence. We try to figure out things as best we can. In this world, due diligence is a hard thing. Sometimes we do that work and find out that somebody shouldn't be trusted, or that we shouldn't believe everything that is in front of our face. I think that's a thing that all of us should be very cautious about. But the fact is that we live in a different world, I hope, where God can change and God can make wrongs right. God can change people's hearts. God can forgive in places where we struggle with forgiveness. I don't know, to be honest, I struggled in my visit with Gib and Donna. I really couldn't tell them what is the best outcome for this man. Should he and his wife leave the church and let them start fresh? Some people have talked about that. How do you overcome difficult things that have happened? In some ways, somebody did not do due diligence when they hired this couple. And so there are always consequences to that. So I go back to what Ron wrote about Ezekiel. Doing due diligence probably means that we pay more attention to God's Spirit, to God speaking in our life, to God moving in other people's lives. We pay attention to what God is doing in the world. And I think that is, we do our due diligence with the information that we have, but in the long run, we listen to God and spend a lot of time doing our due diligence with God's Spirit in our lives and in the world that we live in. I am thankful that we are here this morning to think and pray and be together and know how best to live in this world where there are some real things that we need to be discerning people about. I am thankful for God's presence and God's Spirit. Thank you for being here.
I'll begin by reading the passage from the Sermon on the Mount that is the topic of our discussion today. This is the opening of Matthew chapter 7. This is from the New International Version, where Jesus said, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take that speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet, and then turn and tear you to pieces." That last little bit is an interesting, kind of cryptic little illustration that Jesus threw in that I think is very relevant to the overall subject. Now I want to read also from John's Gospel, the 8th chapter. It's a passage of Scripture that if you look in your Bibles, especially modern translations, it will say the original manuscripts, the original texts, probably did not have this in there. It has been added later by the church. I still think it's important that we know this story and ponder it deeply. Jesus went up to the Mount of Olives. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." And then again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left where the woman was still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Now go and leave your life of sin." Probably the best illustration of judging and judgment and that sort of thing to be found in the Scriptures, most likely. It certainly illustrates exactly what Jesus was trying to teach in the Sermon on the Mount, illustrates exactly what I hope that we can take away from this time together today. This is a really complicated issue, this issue of judging versus good judgment. An issue of spiritual balance. It's why I started this out with Richard Foster's illustration of the life of spiritually disciplined grace. That narrow pathway between huge chasms of legalism and license. To walk with Christ means to walk in that kind of balance, to avoid going over the edge, to stay on the path, to stay in his footsteps. And so it's important that we understand this issue, and it's really important that we think about this issue. The Beatitudes life can help us to stay on that pathway. It's one of the things that I hope we can learn and remember about this particular tricky issue. By living faithfully every day by those beatitude steps that Jesus, we've talked about this stairway into the kingdom life. By doing that faithfully, by letting that be the focus of our attention, it can help us to avoid those extremes that are so deadly. So living the Beatitudes life is a very good preventative for getting off track in the spiritual journey. We also need to remember that life requires the use of good judgment, even though Jesus said, "Judge not." They are two different things. We are absolutely mandated to use good judgment, and Jesus, throughout his teaching ministry, constantly called upon people to exercise good judgment in the way that they were understanding the law and in the way that they were choosing to live their lives. So we need to hear these words very carefully. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I've had people even tell me, "You're being judgmental." And I always think it's kind of funny. Yeah, and you just made a judgmental statement. It's like a dog chasing its tail sometimes. Life requires that we use good judgment, and that is especially true, as Pam has told you, even in ministry out in Idaho. Some folks did not use very good judgment, and it has been costly for them. I also was really thankful that we had just gone through the lesson about Ezekiel on Wednesday night as I got serious about writing this, because that's another really important question about judging versus good judgment. Ezekiel was called to be a watchman. That's the term that the Old Testament usually uses. A watchman over the people of Israel who were in exile in Babylon. And he was instructed by God to warn the people of what was still ahead so that they wouldn't get anxious and try to go back too soon to Jerusalem. And it is made clear to him by God as he commissioned him that you must warn the people, and if you don't do it, you will be accountable for their failures. Christians need to hear that in our time. We all think, oh, well, we're fine. We know that the world's going to end one of these days, and we know that sin has horrible costs attached to it. But, as long as we know that, we're good, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, live my life. We need to think long and hard about that calling of Ezekiel and our unwillingness to warn people that we love and care about, and even take the risk of being called judgmental when we are led by the Spirit. And that's another one of the really key pieces of this thing. You can't just go around telling people they're wrong. You can't just go around trying to correct people all the time. You need to be led by the Spirit. Ezekiel was filled with the Spirit, which equipped him then to do that ministry that God had called him to. That should be so true of us, no matter what we do to make a living. We need to be filled and led by the Spirit of Christ so that we don't do harm when we warn people, but that we actually accomplish good. That seems a really important thing as well. And that is kind of the way that I tried to sum this up, that regardless of whether we exercise that judgment or whether we keep our mouth shut, we need to be motivated by the amazing love of God, the agape, sacrificial love of God, so that love is the only motivation for us to either speak up and seek to correct someone who's getting off track, or love must be what motivates us to keep our mouth shut so that we don't do more harm by opening them. There is no formula. There is no magic answer. We need to be led by the Spirit in what we do. That's, in a nutshell, what I was trying to accomplish by addressing this really important piece of the Sermon on the Mount. The queries that we've posed at the end of this are these. Number one, what other ways besides pronouncing eternal judgment on people do humans try to do that only God should be doing? It's that thing of displacing God, and humans do it all the time. Humans always do that. It's always a mistake. we are not God, and we need to allow God to be God. So what other ways there are you aware of, besides pronouncing eternal judgment on people, that human beings get involved in that they probably shouldn't? Number two, why would God hold Ezekiel accountable for not pronouncing God's judgment and warning about the people's, Judah's sinfulness? Number three, how can we know when and where we should shake the dust off our feet with someone and move on to other ministry? Number four, what are the best ways to prevent or overcome judgmentalism in our lives and in our faith communities? And I'll throw in a fifth one at no extra cost. This is Pam. She said this last night as we were talking about this, and I just jotted it down. Why is it so much easier to judge and try to fix other people's faults than to focus on our own? Why is it so much easier to do this towards other people rather than focus on our own spiritual shortcomings and work at getting better in those areas? As always, we ask that you listen carefully to the Spirit. We look forward to what God might speak through you. There may be someone here today who needs to hear what God is saying through you. So please be faithful. At home, you'll need to unmute. Pam will be here to try to help. I'll be running around with the mobile microphone. We welcome you to share from your heart what God has taught you on this really important subject. Thank you all once again for being with us today.
This is a subject that I struggle with daily. I spent a lot of time in the military and a lot of time doing other things. And how do you not judge and yet meet a standard? And I think that's the trick, is just to walk the way, the life that Jesus walked. And it's okay to say someone missed the mark. Sin is from the Latin word which means to miss the mark. And if they miss the mark, it's all right to make an observation. It's not all right to say that they did it for failure of being lazy or weak, but just saying that, you're stating the statement. And then also acknowledge you miss the mark and just try to be better every day.
Thank you.
All right, so bear with me, guys. I have a lot to say on this. I have to write notes just so I can remember it all. Kind of talking about betrayal and trust and forgiving. I was writing down, when is it appropriate to let someone back in after they have abused your trust? My opinion, I think it is possible to forgive someone, but that does not mean we have to let them back into their lives. Especially when that person is still choosing to act in the way of abusing trust, of being selfish. It is possible to forgive, but not to trust. But in my opinion, I think the point when we let someone back in, though, is when we can see that they truly mourn their sin, when they feel to the depths of their soul that they have done wrong and seek to atone. It's hard to tell sometimes, but I feel like it really isn't. You can see in someone's eyes when they truly mourn what they have done. And you can also see when they may say that they do, but they really don't. A lot of it is based on their actions and their decisions, not just their words. How are they living their lives in response to their bad choices in the past? So I was thinking about when do we help? When is it okay to help, or when do we let go? I was thinking of an analogy to describe this. I was thinking of a man whose car is broken down on the side of the road, and he chooses to get out, and he's pushing that car by himself, and he's doing the best that he can, but he's not making it very far. The people driving by will see the man, and they'll see that he's pushing the car, and they will be compelled to come help him because he cannot do it on his own. So they help the man push the car down the road where he needs to go. But in contrast, there's another man whose car is broken down, who just sits in his car and waits for someone to come push the car for him. The person who is sitting by, not putting in any effort to make it a difference of getting through this hard time on their own, will probably receive no help because no one will know that he needs help. He's not trying to put it in the effort. People have to be willing to move forward for them to move forward. They can't expect other people to come save them when they want to put in no effort themselves. Okay, moving on. I wrote on here, a person's will/strength is measured by their capacity to endure the deepest hardships of life and evils done unto us and still choose to stay open, to choose to love and forgive. I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of men that I've worked with who measure their strength and their ability to fight and to defend themselves, to not let themselves be open, to be hardened and rigid. And I've tried to express with some of these people that I've spent time with that is not a measure of a man's strength. That is a reflection of their fear and usually is manifested in anger. And letting people in is the way that we find friendship, find happiness with others, but most importantly with God, letting God into our lives and trusting that He'll take care of the harder things. And that's kind of more like along the lines of the answer to query number 1, but also additionally, something else that we as humans do, I think, we try to find hope. The people who try to find hope in life, happiness and joy, but do not let in God struggle. I had a conversation with somebody a while back, and I remember this conversation because he had asked, this was back when before I had really accepted Christ, and he had asked me the question, is it possible for someone to live a truly joyful and happy life without God? And at the time, my answer was yes, but my answer has definitely changed since then. I think about the parable of the sower, the one who had cast the seed onto the rocky soil, that they took root, but it was shallow, and they grew up high, but they were scorched by the sun. I think in a sense, people who place their hope in things that are earthly or material, anything in this life can go at any time, and our whole world could go. The people who place their trust in God place their trust and hope in something that is beyond this life, something that cannot be destroyed, and that is why their roots are deep. And then the additional query at the end, why is it easier to want to address other people's problems and fix other people's problems than our own? I think about it in terms of when we can only see ourselves physically when we take the time to look in a mirror. We're not always in front of a mirror, but the people that we are around see us all the time. So that it's easier for them to see the smudge on our face than we can, because we have not taken the time to look in the mirror and look at ourselves to see where we are lacking or what we need to be fixed. Self-reflection is very difficult. It is, a lot of the times we'll try to convince ourselves more so that we're doing the right thing rather than trying to fix it. I think there's two ways that we deal with fixing ourselves. It's that we either face the problem that's in front of us, and we take it head on, and we try to overcome it. Or in the other option, I think it's something that a lot of us do. I think it's definitively what is called a psychotic break. We will change our perspective of the situation to think that it is not a problem, just to say that this is okay. I can look at a different angle and accept that this evil can live in my life because I can look at it in a way where it's not damaging or harmful and to other people or to myself. But it's easiest to lie to ourselves. We can convince ourselves of any truths, and it's not that hard. To be truthful and be completely honest, to know what is right, takes time to really look within ourselves, to know ourselves truly. To do that, how we do that is by seeking God, to pray, to let me see my actions and myself absolutely clearly. And only in that way, when we are doing this consistently, can we help those who are struggling in their sin too, because we have been the example of overcoming our sin, of overcoming our weaknesses and our flaws. I have other stuff to say probably, but I'm going to leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you. Pat, do you want to speak? Okay, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I I think everyone has a problem with judgment, and what has helped me the most is trying to separate the act or the situation being judged by me or other people from the person. Um, I was thinking of Pam's friends and why did they need that money? What there was a problem there, or that act wouldn't have been done. That to me, that needs to enter into what you're judging. I mean, I take it to the extreme. Even when my dog was doing something, I would never say bad dog. I would always comment on don't chew on the couch, Elsa, kind of thing, instead of doesn't make you a bad dog. And I'm not sure that their action really makes them bad people, or I just try to make I don't know, a serious attempt to not judge people, but to judge their action and to keep those two separated and to ponder what has caused that action.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I don't know whether this has to do with the topic today or not, but in some ways it does. After the tornado, I had decided that what we found was not significant damage to my house. And I knew there was a lot more going on, and I called the person who had put the roof on 15 years ago. He will put a new roof on, and it was satisfactory with my insurance. I have not asked someone to help with that. Then some work on glass had been done by the church, and I met the man here, just happened to run into him and talk to him, and he was quite willing to help me with the glass issues. I met with him a couple times at my house. I feel like in some ways I was directed to these people, and I have not felt, nothing's happened yet at my house, but that's the story at a lot of homes. But I still I felt fine with what I have working with both of them. I've talked to both of, well, no, I talked to Greg in the last week a couple times. He had told me, he's the roofer, he had told me that Gary, the guy that was doing the glass, had died. I could find nothing that told me this was true other than what he told me. I finally did find out. I made a call, and his wife, widow, Elena, Gary's widow, called me on Friday night and verified that, yes, he had died. And so I feel like there's probably still reason that I'm trying to help her a little bit through this. I don't know if I can, but I did tell her not to worry about it, that we will work this out. We'll be able to work through this, because she's worried about what he was to do for me. And I'm like, no, we'll work it out. But how we discern things, I don't know. Sometimes maybe not enough, but I still had trust. My trust wavered after I had heard he had died, and I couldn't find anything that verified that. That was wavering trust in a week. But why is that? I don't know, but maybe that was still further discernment that I wanted to know, and I kept hoping that, then I wanted to hope and pray that it wasn't true, that this was false information I had gotten. But I still trust in the people I'm working with, and this is all going to be okay, except for Gary and his family. So please pray for Gary Schmidt, and he's from Union City, and a very, very nice man as far as I could tell, and I was with him a couple of times at my house, and for me, this will work out. Pray for them.
Thank you.
in referring to query 1, what ways besides pronouncing eternal judgment on people do humans try to do things? I think it falls on our. It seems sometimes we get the idea that we're supposed to do things for God. In other words, maybe we just get the idea and want to try to accomplish things on our own. I wasn't even directed by God. It'd be so easy to fall into that trap and then feel satisfied because we think we've done a good thing. It's a little different than what the lesson may be trying to take here this morning, but I think it's something we need to be sure of God's direction. We need the discernment to know where the direction comes from. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are just a couple of minutes before the top of the hour. We'll wait a couple of minutes. If there are others who should share something and you know it, please be faithful to do that. We'll wait just for a minute or two longer. Here in the room, just get our attention, okay?
I think Becky's trying to get your attention.
Okay, Becky, I will unmute you. You're unmuted.
Just a brief thought. I think when we are told to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, that probably some of our neighbors we should have loved ourselves a little bit more. So, and thank you for all your prayers.
Thank you, Becky.
If hearts are clear, we're going to close by singing another hymn. Just a couple of verses of this. We'll sing verses number 1 and 3 of hymn number 438. The title of it is Cleanse Me. I've got to go get my hymnal. Hang on. This is an old hymn that I'm sure that many of you have heard. Rhonda's going to play for us once again, so we'll continue the experiment. But hymn number 438, Cleanse Me, verses 1 and 3. Thank you, Rhonda, once again. That's working way better than I ever imagined it might, so thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who has been part of this today and for sharing your thoughts and for engaging this topic at a deep level. This is something that is a daily thing for all of us who are actually alive and living in this culture. There's so many things that go wrong. How do we keep from judging people while still living with good judgment? So keep on stirring that as you go through this day. But thank you very, very much for the good and wise things that have been said today. Before we close this, we want to make sure that friends know what's happening around here this week. So very briefly, today, Gage. Need a little more direct shot here, sorry. Today, at 3:30 p.m., as far as we know, the trustees are going to meet 3:30 p.m. either by Zoom or over at the parsonage for their regular June meeting. And then at 4:30 p.m., the Missions and Social Concerns Committee will have their June meeting, also by Zoom. Also welcome to come join me at the parsonage if you like. Pam too, she'll stay. So just take note of that. Tomorrow, Monday, the 24th of June, the Ministry and Oversight will be gathering at 7 o'clock by Zoom for their June meeting. So M&O, please take note of that. On Wednesday this week, it is Bread for the World Fast Once a Month Day. I encourage you to skip a meal, donate the cost of that meal to a hunger relief organization, and use the time you save from cooking and eating and cleaning up to do a couple of things: to pray and meditate on the plight of the poor in our culture and around the world, and also to write to Congress and ask them for compassionate public policy. All of that on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. For those who are fasting, you can break your fast with us over at the parsonage if you like. 5:30 for intercession salad supper. Then at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the Welcome Class Bible Study will be gathering by Zoom, 7 p.m., and they will study lesson number 2 in the new quarterly. It is entitled Watchmen, about Ezekiel, and it's drawn from the 3rd and 33rd chapters of Ezekiel's prophecy. Everyone is welcome to join the Bible study. Just ask us for the Zoom link and a quarterly, and we'll see that you get that. That's on Wednesday evening at 8:15. After the Bible study is finished, the Fabulous Friends and Parsonage classes Zoom will happen at 8:15 just for their every other week check-in. Next Sunday is a bit of a big day around here. There's going to be a potluck after worship next week. So, yeah, Gage, we're counting on you to exercise your chef skills. And all right, Gage says he's coming. We will meet at 10 o'clock for worship sharing, just as we have today. We hope that you'll bring a friend and then ask them to stay for lunch with Quakers. It'll be a great feast downstairs. It is a genuine, full-blown potluck this time, so we are asking anyone who is able to share meat and casserole and vegetable and salad and dessert dishes with everyone so that we can all feel like we've feasted together. So please come join us next Sunday if you're able. Table service and drinks will be provided. You don't need to worry about that stuff. That's all next Sunday. Today also there is an offering plate over on the table in the parlor that is there for receiving friends' contributions to support the ministries of our church. We once again thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your faithfulness in that important part of the church's ministries. We also need to point out that the new Fruit of the Vine daily devotional book for July, August, and September is now over on the table under the lamp, and you are most welcome to take a copy of that if you use the Fruit of the Vine or would like to start. I think that's all of the announcements that are essential for today. The prayer sheet on the other side of this paper is just chock full today. We are so thankful Becky Edmonds could be with us this morning. She was over in Ball Hospital for about 4 days, I think, and is obviously doing very much better, so we can give thanks to God for his help to Becky. but pray that she will completely recover her energy and good health. Diana McFarland has also been with us today. She said before the meeting that she is scheduled for some diagnostic testing this week after the recent episode that she suffered that she was told was a stroke. They're trying to nail that down and decide exactly what to do and how to help her. So please pray for Diana and her doctors. Sharon Reinert has been with us this morning. She is still awaiting heart valve surgery. There are some complications evidently in the delivery process for that, so please pray for Sharon and for Terry both. Pray for their daughter also, Laura Smith, who is awaiting reports back from significant diagnostic work that was done last week regarding the possibility of an aneurysm. So please pray for Laura's peace as she waits for the doctors to get those reports together and decide what they're going to do. Charlie Boyd has also been with us today. We were thrilled in the middle of this past week when we learned that Charlie had had his surgery, came through it quite well and looked really good this morning. So Charlie, we are going to continue praying that your heart will grow stronger and stronger and that the other health problems that you are dealing with will be diminished by a good heart output. Give thanks to the Lord for Charlie's well-being this week. Cleo McFarland has also been with us. He could see us better today because he had cataract surgery on Thursday morning. I'm so thankful he got that done. Please pray that that will heal up just like it's supposed to and give him really good vision going forward. He'll have another one done in just about a month or a little over a month. So pray for Cleo as he heals up from this procedure and prepares for the next one. Pam pointed out to me this morning that Ann Riddle's schedule for her ophthalmologist appointment has been changed. They had conflicting doctor appointments and she decided to go with her general practitioner first. So she is still on the schedule for getting eyes checked. She is really struggling and will appreciate your prayers. And we can give thanks also for Pam's mother, Mary Curtis, out in Idaho, who is now answering her own phone. And that was not happening for several weeks before this latest hospitalization. So whatever they did to help her has been significantly effective. And we give thanks to God for that. She is still in the rehab facility, but it is likely that she will get to go back to her assisted living place probably early this coming week. So give thanks and pray for Mary Curtis to continue getting better and stronger. On the cancer list are the same names that you've been seeing: Deborah Lilly, Marvin McFarland, Cheryl Thomas, who is Linda Groth's daughter in South Carolina. Carolyn Dwiggins is Doug Baker's friend in South Carolina. Leanne Kennedy is the Edmonds niece. I believe she lives in Muncie. And James Lewis is Suzanne Weber's friend over at Union City. I know that you are aware of other people dealing with cancer. Please pray for them all and ask God to give their caregivers wisdom and strength as well. Please pray for friends and family members who are in assisted living and nursing facilities. Those can be lonely places. Ask God to accompany our friends there. Please also pray for people who are out traveling around as summer gets underway. Jeff and Mary Clark have gone to Tennessee to be with grandchildren and kids. So please pray for their safe return this week. And we also ask that as you watch television and see news reports of the horrible tragedies that have been happening all over this country and around the world regarding weather and climate change and all of that, folks in Iowa having to swim out this morning, I think, after horrific flooding in the last day or two. Please pray for people in those places, in those situations, tornadoes and all the rest. Just ask God to be with them, to protect people, to help them in the recovery processes. The wildfires out west also should concern us quite greatly, so pray for people in those places as well. And as always, we ask that you pray for peace, that God would somehow change the hearts of people to help them to get along rather than want to hurt each other. There's so much violence going on in this world. We need to pray, and we need to be a part of the solution. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with us. A couple of other things that are not printed here, but that we really should bring to your attention. Gage told me this morning, and I know several of others in the group have heard from Cliff Painter late this week, that he is really struggling with depression and has not been with us because he's just not been feeling up to it. So please pray for Cliff and for his wife Sue, that they will improve. And they're very close to the fires in Calaveras County now, and I'm sure that's not helping at all. But please be praying for Cliff and his wife. Joyce and Bill Wagner were not with us today. Pam and I were over in Muncie on Friday hoping to see them, and Bill asked that we not stop in because Joyce was feeling so unwell. I suspect that that may still be the case, so please pray for Joyce and for Bill Wagner. Kay Mendenhall did not make it today, and Dennis told us that she was not feeling well either. So please pray for Kay, for her strength. And then Ellen has asked us today to pray for the widow and the family of Gary, is it? Gary Smith, who died over in Union City in the past week or so. That's a lot to think about and a lot to pray about. Are there other concerns that should be on our list before we close? If you are online, you'll need to unmute. Here in the room, wave your arm. We have a mic runner. I don't see any boxes lighting up and no arms are waving. Let's trust that we've got this covered, and if you think of something, you are most welcome to email it to us and we'll get it included on the list that goes out tomorrow. Would you pause with me for just a moment as we lift these things into God's care? Let's pray together. We thank you, Lord, for the privilege of being together today with all of these folks who love you and are serving you with their lives. Thank you for the good things that have been shared today from people's hearts. Thank you for the work that your Spirit continues to do in all of us all the time, whenever we will allow you. We ask for grace that you would help us to let you do that even more. That you truly would fill our lives with your presence. We thank you as well, Lord, that you are a God who knows all about these things we've talked about, all of these needs scattered over such a wide area. People who really need your help on this day. We are very aware that you already know about them and that you are already at work in every one of these situations. We, more than anything, want to simply express our agreement with your very best intentions for all of these people that we love and care about who need your help on this day. So we commit them into your care. We entrust them to your wisdom and ask that you will pour out your power and your love into their lives in ways that bring healing, not just to their bodies, but to their spirits, that brings help for those challenging situations that people face, that brings power for the ministries that people are engaged in, that brings your goodness into a world that sometimes it's pretty hard to find in. Thank you, Father, for your love for us and for this time to be together today. We praise you, we worship you, and we give you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen. I'll bet Rhonda will play something if we'll listen. Thank you, Rhonda. Beautiful as always. God bless you for helping us. It's been so wonderful to have you do this. Thank you all for coming. You are at liberty. Go in peace. Have a wonderful remainder of your day. Thank you, friends. Thanks for all of you online as well. I'll leave this open so that you can chat with each other if you would like. It's good that Rhonda has closed with a climate change hymn. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire. Yeah, it was right on time.